Angus Mitchell. I'm the General Manager of Maritime Safety Queensland. What we have is really all of the ports, 21 ports in Queensland. 5 harbour masters sit within Maritime Safety Queensland. We look after all the aids to navigation throughout Queensland, around 3,500. We have the VTS centre, so we've got 5 VTS centres that cover the whole state, which includes through the Reef VTS, which covers through the Barrier Reef. So we look after big shipping throughout all of the exports, really, that go out of the state of Queensland, that underpin the national economy and the Queensland economy, but equally all those imports that come in as well. All the way down to also recreational vessels. We have a safety function as well in terms of investigative prosecutions, licensing, registration, etc. So it's a pretty holistic look at managing a waterway, and I've been there for just over a year now. And it's been a challenging year, let me say, but very rewarding. It matters because it underpins our national economy, for one thing. It matters because between 92 to 97% of everything that comes into the country comes in via ships. So maritime matters on an economic sense. It certainly underpins fuel that we rely on, all of those goods we rely on. But equally, in a place like Queensland, it's down to recreation. Maritime matters from the very big macro picture of actually facilitating our lifestyle, right down to the micro around individuals being able to get out on the waterway. It's affected every aspect of the business, as you would imagine, as it has with just about everyone's business. So from my own staffing around a lot of remote working, but we still have a lot of frontline delivery. So I still have to have people out on the water changing nav aids, doing safety patrols. One of the things that has really been able to continue throughout the period is recreational boating in Queensland. All the way up to, again, this macro picture of we still have to keep trade coming in and out of the state. The supermarket shelves still need to be stocked. All of that containerised trade still needs to get into Brisbane. And equally, all our exports that really keep the country afloat still need to get out of our ports. So in the very beginning, we looked at a couple of priorities of how we were going to manage it. And when it comes to international shipping, it was very much around the health and welfare of seafarers, because without them, none of this can occur, none of our trade can come in and out. The next one was around protecting the Queensland population from the threat of COVID, and specifically the maritime workforce, pilots, stevedores, tug operators, linesmen, etc. And then the next one was facilitation of trade, because that had to occur. And in all of our decision making, we go back to those principles and make sure that we're adhering to them. Yeah, look, it's certainly complicated. And there's a whole range of things that we had to try and make sure that to solve the problem isn't simply just allowing crew changes. You have to make sure that they get above the caps that are allowed into the state in the first place. So, there's airline caps that we had to deal with that problem. We needed to have appropriate quarantine hotels that were separate to the other government ones so that we don't override the government ones. We had to have dedicated isolation corridors from those hotels, from the airport to the hotel to the vessel. We also had to make sure, depending on how many were changing out in the vessel, that there wasn't a risk of transfer to marine pilots who had to take the vessels out. And equally, then we had to make sure in the reverse, when they got off the vessels, that we could count time at sea as part of quarantine, that there was appropriate hotel accommodation for them to be quarantined before flying out. And making sure that, again, once they come in through Queensland, we go back to those 3 principles, making sure that we are prioritising their health and welfare, then the state of Queensland, and making sure there was no spread into Queensland, and the facilitation of trade. So look, it is complex, every single changeover, and we've done over 1,400 of them now in the last 6 weeks. Everyone has a slightly different bent to it, and you've got to be on top of it, because what we can't afford is for any gaps to open up and for COVID to come in via that vector. One of the things this pandemic hopefully has done is really put a spotlight back on our maritime industry, but equally around how can we build up Australia's role in that. I would love for the rest of Australia to understand the role that the maritime trade plays, that every Australian, every single day relies fundamentally on it.